They buried her mother at 2:16 p.m. By 4:03, someone left a metal box on her doorstep, sealed, unmarked, and warm to the touch. Inside, a single Polaroid of her mother. Smiling but very much alive, dated 2 weeks ago. No note, no explanation. Just a key engraved with her father's name, a man who died 25 years earlier. She hadn't even taken off her black dress when the doorbell rang again. Same box, different photo. Same smile. Who the hell was buried this morning, and who just declared war on everything she thought she knew? The last thing her mother ever said was, "Don't open that drawer until I'm gone." She hadn't asked why. Just nodded the way you do when the person you love is dissolving in front of you, and words are a luxury neither of you can afford. The funeral was small. Tight. Rain threatened but never followed through. Most of the people there were polite strangers, nurses, old co-workers, someone who claimed to be a cousin but looked lost the entire time. She didn't cry. Not because she wasn't sad, but because the grief was lodged somewhere deeper. Like a splinter in the soul, she drove home with the window cracked. Just enough to let the wind scrape through her hair, just enough to smell the earth still clinging to her heels. When she stepped onto the porch, the first thing she noticed wasn't the box, it was the silence. The kind of silence that made you feel watched. Then her eyes fell on it. A small metal box sat square on the welcome mat. Not delivered. Placed. Its surface was slightly scorched at the corners. She reached out without thinking and flinched. It was warm. Not sun warm, body warm. Like someone had held it moments before. She knelt slowly, funeral dress brushing the concrete. Picked it up. The weight surprised her. Not heavy like stone. Heavy like memory. Her thumb found a groove near the latch-in. It clicked open without a key. Inside was a Polaroid. Her mother, standing on a pier she didn't recognize, hair pulled back. Same coat she was buried in. Only she was smiling. Alive. The photo was dated 12 days ago. She almost dropped it. There was no note. No explanation. Just the photo, and nestled beneath it, a small antique key with one name etched in cursive. Joseph. Her father's name. But Joseph had died 25 years ago. Burned to death in a house fire she wasn't supposed to remember. The flames had eaten the walls, the roof. And supposedly him. She sat down on the front step, slowly, her knees folded like paper. The box lay open beside her, that warm metallic scent mixing with old perfume still clinging to her dress. Her fingers traced the photo again, this time landing on her mother's hands. There, just below the wrist, was the scar from the bike. Accident when she was 8, the one she blamed herself for. It was there, clear. Unmistakable. This wasn't edited. She felt the memory slide back into place. The night she heard her mother crying in the kitchen, whispering over the phone. She never know. It's safer this way. Something buzzed behind her ribs. She stood and went inside. Left the box on the table, unopened key still pressed into her palm. The house smelled like lily. Funeral lily. Too sweet, too thick. Her mother's old slippers sat by the door. One still slightly indented from the last time she wore them. In the hallway mirror, she caught her own reflection and paused, not because of how tired she looked, but because, for a split second, she thought she saw someone else, behind her. The light caught the glass in just the right way. A blur, a suggestion. And then nothing. She turned. Nothing but the hallway. Empty. Still holding her breath, she stepped into her mother's room. It looked exactly the same, neat, unlived in. As if dying had been scheduled in advance, she opened the drawer, not the locked one, just a side drawer near the bed. Inside was a half-used lipstick, a torn grocery receipt, and a crumpled photo. She unfolded it. It was her again. As a baby, but not in this house. And not with the woman she just buried. The doorbell rang. Sharp, too. Sharp dot, she went to the door slowly this time. Let her hand rest on the knob. Let the weight of the key in her other hand center her like an anchor. When she opened the door, there it was dot, another box, same scorch marks. Same warmth dot, she didn't pick it up. She just stood there, wind catching. The hem of her dress, watching it sit there like a question that already knew the answer. Some names are scars. Others become songs. The photo lay face down on the table as if it too needed time to breathe. She made tea she wouldn't drink. Touched the rim of her mother's favorite mug, still stained with a ring of faded lipstick. The dark red kind, funeral. Red, she once called it. Her mother had only worn it on days that demanded pretending. Birthdays, court dates, anniversaries no one else remembered. The kettle screamed. She didn't move. She turned the photo over again, slowly, as if it might shatter in her hand. Her mother, 12 days ago, smiling like someone who had never buried secrets. Her hair curled the way she always hated it. The silver chain around her neck catching light in a way that made it undeniable. It was the necklace she was buried in. She studied her mother's face until the lines blurred. Checked the wrist. The scar was still there. Pale and soft like the crescent of a fading moon. From the fall she took in '94, chasing a man who never came home. She pulled out a magnifier from the junk drawer, the same one her mother used to read pill bottles in her final year. Scanned the corners, checked the edges, no signs of tampering. No edits, no tears. Just truth. But the photo hid something worse. She pressed her phone between her shoulder and ear as she scrolled her call history. Funeral home, clicked, rang twice. I have a strange question, she said when the woman answered. Her voice cracked mid-sentence, so she masked it with a cough. My mother, was she buried or cremated? The pause was short. Too short. Oh, cremated, the woman said cheerfully. Per the prearranged instructions. Urn was sealed before the service, but her casket, symbolic, the woman said. No body inside, just flowers and a wait. The call ended. The silence stretched like skin over something rotten dot. She set the phone down with a soft thud and stared at the photo again. 12 days ago, her mother was supposed to be dying. Barely moving, half lucid, but the photo showed her upright, outside. Smiling dot, she turned to the door dot and remembered the doorbell. Camera, the footage from yesterday should have shown who delivered the box. She hadn't checked it. She didn't think she needed to. Her fingers flew across the app. Log in, click, load. A blank gap. The whole day dash deleted, dot not corrupted. Not glitched. Erased dot, she went to the desktop. Pulled the backup drive from a drawer. Lined with receipts and unsent birthday cards. Plugged it in. Her mother's handwriting was still on the label, in case something happens. The files loaded, slowly, lagging like something reluctant to relive. She found the right timestamp. Pressed play. The screen showed her porch, empty, then 4:03 p.m. A flicker. A shadow crossed the frame. Box appeared on the matte dot. She paused. Rewound. Frame. My frame dot at 4 hours 2 minutes and 57 seconds. A blur. A sleeve. A hand holding the box. And in the glass of the storm door, a reflection. She zoomed in. Dark eyes, jaw lean too sharp to be her own. A scar across the lip. Familiar dot, her mother had whispered once about a man named Victor. Said he helped clean things up when your father couldn't. She thought it was a metaphor, a family joke. She didn't understand, but the man in the reflection was holding another box. One name stayed. One name vanished. But neither belonged to who she thought. She turned back toward the photo on the table. Her hand brushed the lipstick-stained mug. It fell, cracked, split perfectly in two. Just like the image on her screen. She stared at the reflection until her own face disappeared behind the pixels. If justice still matters, you'll want the next page. She used to trace the lines of her mother's signature when she was young. How the R in Rose looked like a music note, curling mid-sob. She thought it meant elegance. She thought it meant belonging. Now her fingers trembled as she unfolded the birth certificate from the false bottom of the box. Same birthday, same city. Wrong last name. Wrong parents. A silence dropped through her chest like cold water hitting stone. Her thumb slid over the embossed seal, hoping for a flaw, a mistake, some smudge to tell her it wasn't real. But it was real. Too real. And on the back, in the same curled R she'd once loved, 4 words in her mother's handwriting. I had no choice. She held it like it might start bleeding. The locket around her neck suddenly felt too tight. She unclasped it and let it fall into her palm. Inside, the faded photo of the woman she buried. The woman she called mother. She looked at it the way people look at old lovers, searching for clues their heart couldn't see the first time. The floor creaked behind her. Nothing. Just the weight of a lie settling in. She opened her laptop with hands that didn't feel like hers and searched the hospital where she was supposedly born. Clicked the number, let it ring. She didn't breathe when they answered. I'm looking for records. Birth records, she said. 1994, July 17th, Rose Whitmore. She would have been the mother. Typing, a pause. No. Such entry, the clerk said. Are you sure about the name? Her stomach folded inward. She thanked them. Hung up, listened to the sound of her own pulse. And then, without meaning to, she whispered her name aloud first, middle, last, and it sounded wrong. Some names are scars. Others become songs. She stood and walked to the closet, drawn by something wordless. The grief had turned. Now it burned. Her mother's bedroom still smelled like her lavender, old books, and sleep. She sat on the carpet, cross-legged like a child in timeout, and opened the lowest drawer. Empty. She knocked the wood with her knuckle. Hollow, she felt along the back, until her fingers caught on a seam. A false panel. She pulled. Nothing. Tugged harder. It gave way with a sigh. Inside, a locked compartment, smooth silver, the kind made for secrets. She picked the lock with the hairpin she always kept in her sleeve, the one her mother said made her look dangerously clever. Her hands moved like they'd done this before. The drawer opened with a soft click, like the past exhaling. Papers, receipts, one small cassette labeled C5. Burn if found. A photo of her mother, arms around a child who wasn't her. And beneath it all, a second birth certificate, same first name, different last, different parents again. One name stayed. One name vanished. But neither belonged to who she thought. She picked up the torn receipt. Hotel, room 216. Dated a month before her birth. Same city, room paid in cash. No guest name. The tape in her hand felt warm. Like it knew. She slipped it into her coat pocket without knowing why. If justice still matters, you'll want the next page. She stood. Looked in the mirror hanging on the closet door. Her face split by the frame's silver trim. One side lit, the other shadowed. She stared. Didn't blink. Then whispered the name from the first certificate, and waited to feel like a person again. But the silence just deepened. The woman in the mirror didn't answer back. It started with a teacup. Not hers. Not her mother's either. A stranger's. Left behind. Lipstick on china, dark red, the kind no one wears without a reason. She found it the day after the funeral, sitting on the back porch railing like someone had meant to finish their tea but ran out of time. That morning, she'd come outside for silence, not questions. The old neighbor from 2 doors down waved her over while pulling weeds. Said something strange about a woman in red who came the week before her mother passed. Gloves on, hair like fire, she said. She left crying. The girl frowned. What day? Wednesday, the neighbor said. She parked under the oak tree, didn't say much. Just asked if your mama still lived here. She pulled out her phone, scrolled to the funeral photos she hadn't looked at since. Showed one to the neighbor. The woman's face changed. Her hand paused midair. Oh no, she whispered. That wasn't your mother's funeral, not the one I saw her at. A wind moved through the yard. Dry leaves scraped across the sidewalk. Like they were trying to leave without being seen. She barely remembered walking back inside. But she did remember the memory that cracked loose. Her mother's voice, once whispered in a dark hallway when she was 8. If anyone asks, I raised you myself. She hadn't understood what that meant. Now it dropped into place like a rusted key in an old lock. She didn't cry. Just stared at the kitchen tiles until the light shifted on them. That night, she dreamed of fire. Not chaos-controlled. Contained. A ring of it surrounding a woman's silhouette who never turned around. The flames didn't roar. They waited. And when she woke, there was a car outside. Parked across the street. Engine off. One figure in the front seat. Red coat. The same kind from the neighbor's story. She didn't move. Just watched from the upstairs window. Time stretched. Then, suddenly, the woman looked up. Even across the street. Even through glass, it felt personal. She blinked. And the car was empty. She ran downstairs, barefoot, lungs tight. Opened the front door. Too late. The street was clear. Fog curling like fingers around the stop sign. No taillights. No footprints. Just something on the doorstep. A cassette. No label. No case. Just old plastic and magnetic tape, still warm from a hand she never saw. She picked it up and turned it over. Taped to the back half of a torn receipt. A familiar hotel. Logo, the same one from her mother's hidden drawer. Room 216, but this time, the date wasn't from the past. It was for tomorrow. Some ghosts don't wait for death to haunt you. She didn't go back inside. Not yet. Instead, she sat down on the porch steps, thumb tracing the edge of the cassette like a rosary. Her hands were cold. Her name echoed in her head. Twisted, wrong, borrowed. A red thread dangled from the hem of her sleeve. She pulled it. Without thinking. If justice still matters, you'll want the next page. The woman in red had come back. And this time, she left something behind. The attic smelled like old dust and bitter wood. She hadn't been up there since she was 12, chasing a cat that wasn't even theirs. The same beam she'd cracked her head on still bore the faint dent. Back then, her mother had laughed, pressed ice to her temple, whispered, "You're mine, even when you bleed." Now she climbed the ladder slower. The cassette felt heavier than it should have, like it had a pulse. She found the tape player beneath a pile of Christmas lights and broken photo frames. Black, scuffed, and waiting. It whined when she clicked it open. The gears groaned like they hadn't moved in decades. She slipped the tape in and pressed play. Static, then breath. Then a voice, her mother's, but not her mother's. Single quotes. Cold, measured, flat like a courtroom transcript. If you're hearing this, the lie is finally over. The floor creaked beneath her. She didn't move. Just sat there cross-legged back, pressed to a splintered support beam, as her mother's voice confessed to things no daughter should ever hear. There'd been a girl. Not hers. Taken. Switched. Paid for. The woman in red wasn't alone, the voice said. There were others, men in suits. A man with a scar on his throat. They knew what I'd done. They helped me do it. Because someone powerful needed a child to disappear. Heartbeat. Your real father tried to find you. He was a teacher, ordinary. Too kind. He made noise, wrote letters, filed reports. A pause. He died in a fire. The papers called it an accident. But the lock on his door wasn't broken. It was changed. She pressed her hand to her mouth. Her breath fogged the air. There's a receipt. A hotel, room 216. It's not safe now. If she finds you, she says she's trying to help. She's not. Silence. Then, don't trust the woman in red. The tape clicked. WHIR red dot. She reached for the stop button. But the machine moved on. Its own .rewinding. Fast. Violent, like it was being dragged. Backwards. Then. Click. And another voice. This one whispered, cracked, please forgive me. Still her mother, but broken, this time, human. I didn't mean for this to happen. I only wanted to matter. They said she wouldn't remember, that babies forget. But you didn't, not really. I saw it every time you looked at me like I was someone else. A soft laugh, frayed at the edges. You always reached for someone behind me. Her hands trembled over the pause button. I was 22. I didn't think I had a choice. Then the money came, and after that, the fear. You don't know what they're capable of, but you will, soon. Another click. A buzz. Then nothing. She stared at the player. Its faint orange light pulsed like a heartbeat. Lipstick on china, a torn receipt. A girl who bled for the wrong name. If justice still matters, you'll want the next page. She stood slowly, knees numb. Slipped the cassette into her coat pocket. Below the attic ladder. Moonlight spilled like milk onto the hallway floor. She turned back once, half expecting the player to start again. But at D. Just sat there. Waiting for someone else to listen. She remembered the way her fingers used to curl around a man's thumb. She didn't know his name back then, just the smell of burnt coffee and sandalwood, the shape of his shadow on nursery walls. When he vanished, no one explained why. They just changed the locks and stopped saying, Daddy. The hidden track had teeth. It was a man's voice this time. Gravel and warmth. I don't know if you'll believe this, it began, but I've never stopped watching the sky. Every town I moved to, every cheap motel, I looked up and wondered if you were under the same moon. Her hands gripped the edges of the chair like it was about to fall. The voice knew her name. Her real name. I last saw you in Ridgeway, 1999. You were wearing yellow. You had a locket. You dropped it when they took you. I kept it. Still have it. She fished the key from her coat pocket. Cold metal. Worn teeth. The first box had held nothing but it, and a lipstick-stained receipt tucked behind it. Dated the same week the fire took him. Except maybe at DIDN. The voice paused. Then, I'm not dead. Just erased. Heartbeat. If you want the truth, there's a unit. 17A, across from the orchard. You always liked pairs. Bring the key, the line crackled. Please, come alone. She left before dawn, coat thrown over pajamas, her breath trailing her like ghosts in the cold. The storage facility looked abandoned. Dust thick on the padlocks, silence inside the gates. Unit 17A blinked back at her. She slid the key in. It turned like it had been waiting. The smell hit first. Damp newspaper, metal, something else. Alive. She hesitated. Then peeled the tarp back. There, beneath layers of yellowed newsprint and crumpled sweaters, eyes blinked in the dark. The man inside sat up slowly, face gaunt, beard thick, scar curling beneath his collarbone. Don't scream, he whispered. We don't have time. Her mouth opened. Nothing came out. He reached for something in his coat. A photo. Torn, but her face was there, smudged, soft, barely 3 years old. A woman stood behind her, hand clenched tight around her wrist. She told me you died. She said. I did, he said quietly. On paper, in court, in every way that mattered, but not here. He touched his chest, and she saw the shaking in his fingers. She wanted to run, or hug him, or ask for 20 years back. But instead, she stared. He offered the photo to her. Look closer. She did. And saw something she hadn't before. A shadow behind the woman. A man in red, holding a lighter. She wasn't working. Alone. Another photo fell from his coat. hotel stationery. Torn at the edges. Room 216 circled in red. "They're still watching," he said, "still cleaning up loose ends." Something shifted in her then. The shame she'd worn like skin peeled back to reveal something harder. "They think I'll stay quiet," she said. "Then they don't know you." He answered. She pocketed the photo. "If justice still matters, you'll want the next page." Man's voice dropped to a whisper. "There's more, but not here." She nodded. Then glanced back once at the light hanging overhead. Flickering against metal walls. It buzzed, dimmed, then went dark. The first letter was dated the day she turned 4. It smelled like cedar and thyme. Ink faded, corners curled, a fingerprint smudged where a tear must have fallen. He'd written her name in block letters like she might forget how it sounded. "To my daughter, wherever you are." She read it 3 times before she realized she wasn't breathing. The handwriting was careful, as if he'd been afraid of breaking. The paper. He told her about the wind that day, the song that played on the radio, how he'd bought a cake even though no one would eat it. Every letter was numbered. Year 5, Year 6, Year 7, all sealed. Never sent. He'd kept them in a shoebox wrapped with her baby blanket, still soft, still lavender. It smelled like dust and something buried. She pressed it to her chest, and everything in her went. "Still, I wrote every year," he'd said in the storage unit, voice cracking. "She burned them. I had to start making copies." Hiding them, she, the woman who raised her like blood, who braided her hair and told her her father was dead, who smiled too quickly when she asked about the fire. Her hands shook as she opened Year 12. "You used to hum when you read. You don't know you do it. Your mother did the same." But the photo hid something worse. She remembered the lipstick mark on the china cup in her mother's bedroom, the same shade that stained the torn receipt from the motel. The same one smeared on the last page of the letter she almost skipped. Year 17. One sheet of paper, ink darker than the rest. "I found her. She's safe. She doesn't remember yet, but she will. I'm keeping her close. Just like you asked. It wasn't her father's handwriting. It was her mother's. Scarlet ink, looping cursive. And at the bottom, "Tell my sister she owes me." The woman in red, her aunt. The aunt she thought was a family friend. Always passing through, always arriving. After fights. The same one who bought her first locket. The one who always left before birthdays. Her mouth tasted like metal. One name stayed. One name vanished. But neither belonged to who she thought. She read the rest of the letter with her knees pulled too. Her chest. The sun was bleeding through the blinds now. Shadows long and bending across the carpet. Letters lay everywhere scattered. Like the years she never lived. Right. She picked up one envelope and turned it over. The wax seal hadn't broken. It had never been opened. Inside was a photo. Her, at age 6, at the park she didn't remember. Visiting. The woman in red just behind her, hand on her shoulder. Eyes watching something out of frame. Not her. Him. He'd been there. She looked again. In the corner of the photo, reflected in the glass of the ice cream stand window, was the blur of a man's face. His he'd tried. Every year, every city. And every time they were one step ahead. The shame curled tighter in her ribs, then softened, then broke. She wasn't forgotten. She was stolen. And now, someone would have to answer for it. If justice still matters, you'll want the next page. She lay back on the floor, letters pressed against her ribs like bandages that couldn't stop the bleeding. The last envelope slipped from her fingers. It was addressed to her mother. Unopened. Unread. And sealed with a kiss still, faintly visible in red. A breeze stirred the lace curtains just as she poured the tea. It was the same china cup, the one with the faded red lipstick. Stain near the rim. A mark that never washed out, no matter how many times she tried. The woman in red sat across from her like a ghost made of velvet and regret. She didn't ask to come in. She never did. She simply appeared, like a memory called back too loud. "I didn't take you to hurt anyone. she said, voice low but not trembling. I took you because no one else would have kept you alive. The words dropped like stones into silence. The locket around her neck felt heavier. She hadn't taken it off in days, but now it felt like a question pressed to her collarbone. She was using again. The woman continued. Your mother, she wasn't well. Your father, he was being watched. Bad men. Government types, worse. She came to me in the middle of the night and said, take her. Get her out. She stirred her tea once, twice, then let the spoon rest. In the cup, you think I wanted this life? Living in motels. Changing names. Watching you cry for someone I couldn't let you remember. The crack in her voice was real. And sudden. She wasn't a villain, and neither was he. But none of them were safe. Not for you. But the photo hid something worse. The torn one she kept folded behind the mirror, 3 people smiling. One hand cropped out, a woman holding her like a prize. The lipstick matched the print on the cup. That same smile, that same lie. You said she loved me. She did. She let me think she was my mother. She was. That stopped her. She fed you, fought for you, hid from people who would have used you to destroy everything your real parents tried to protect. Her throat closed. I don't know who to believe anymore. Then believe no one. But read the letters. All of them. A pause. She left more than you think. She just didn't trust anyone enough to say it out loud. The woman in red stood and looked at the box by the door. The same one her father had locked. The one she hadn't opened yet. If you open that box, it all changes, for everyone. Names, records, what she did, what I did. They won't go quietly. And if I don't, then you get to keep your peace. You get to pretend none of this was stolen. She watched the woman in red walk away without another word. The scent of her perfume lingered, warm tobacco and faded roses. She waited until the sun began to rise. Then dressed in silence, black coat, locket tucked under her collar. Scar visible on her hand from the night she tried to burn the first letter. She didn't hide it now. The courthouse steps were still wet with dew. Her boots clicked loud against the stone. A sparrow flew past her shoulder. If justice still matters, you'll want the next page. She walked up slowly, box under her arm. Every step felt like the unraveling of a name, not hers. Not anymore. And inside the box under the letters, under the sealed documents, was a single folded napkin, lipstick still bright. A phone number scrawled in her mother's handwriting. Call only if you still believe in me. The girl tugged at the hem of her dress, the same shade of soft blue her mother used to wear when she was small. It was stitched from memory more than fabric, a pattern remembered, not copied. They sat cross-legged on the floor, the afternoon sun dusting the hardwood in gold. The old shoebox between them was worn soft at the edges, its lid frayed, its contents sacred. She didn't speak at first. Just took out the photograph. The one where no one was smiling quite right. 3 women, all looking at the camera, none looking at each other. One held her as a baby. One stood off-center. One blurred, like a ghost that wouldn't stay still. That's your grandmother, she said, pointing. And that's the other one. And that's the one who tried to take me back. Her daughter's eyes narrowed. Were they bad? No, she whispered. They were broken. And brave. And scared in ways I didn't understand back then. The locket fell from her collar as she leaned forward. It landed with a dull click, the way it always did. Inside was nothing. The photo had disintegrated years ago, but she still carried the emptiness. They all loved me, she said. But not all love feels like safety. But the photo hid something worse. A fingerprint on the glass. A shadow where someone had once been edited out, cut away in anger or shame. The kind of absence that screamed louder than memory. I spent years trying to figure out who was lying, she said. But the truth, it wasn't a matter of who lied. It was who was too afraid to say anything at all. Her daughter reached into the box and pulled out a cassette tape, faded label. Shaky handwriting, the one that started it all. What's on this? A voice I don't want you to forget, even if it breaks you a little. She hadn't played it in years. The first time she did, she'd thrown the tape across the room. The second time, she wrote a letter she never sent. The third time, she forgave someone who never asked for it. She told me I was the best mistake she ever made. The girl's hand slid over a folded napkin. Lipstick marks still bright. Numbers faded now, but still legible. Is she still alive? I don't know, she said. Some people disappear before they're gone. If justice still matters, you'll want the next page. She turned toward the mantel. 3 frames stood in a crook line. One of the woman who raised her chin, proud, hands stained with bleach. One of the woman who gave birth to her, eyes wild, mouth unsure. And one of the woman in red half-turned, hand on her shoulder, never fully claiming the role she played. She adjusted the middle frame, just a little to the left. There's more in this box than I'll ever understand, she said. But you don't have to carry it the same way. Then why show me? Because you waited your whole life for someone to tell the truth, her daughter said. I won't make you wait again. Her voice cracked. They placed the old Polaroid beside a new one. Both wore blue. Both held each other close. The scar on her hand had faded, but when she traced her daughter's cheek, she felt it throb. Not pain, just memory. A window creaked open. Wind carried the scent of something familiar, old perfume, firewood, forgotten letters. The girl turned to ask another question, but her mother was staring at the photo again, where the blur had once been, only this time the face was clear,